Annoying.
Alrighty, folks, welcome to our Tuesday live stream. I'm on today with John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. Tell us about that shirt.
Burn the boats. It's Cortez. You know, when they went after the Aztecs, everybody that had tried to attack the Aztecs was always turned back, and most of them were killed and eaten. Cortez came ashore, said, burn the boats. They said, what? He goes, if we leave this island, we're taking their ships. And that is basically the story of Burn the Boats.
Awesome.
No option, no choice, no plan B. Your only option is that we're going to do this and it's going to work.
I've got one of my all-time favorites, which is we call it prepping.
Grandma calls it Tuesday.
Grandma calls it Tuesday.
There you go.
All right, I'm on. So we've got Angery American on too. Am I allowed to say your other name, or how do you?
Yeah, everybody knows my name. Yeah,
Chris Weatherman. So
yeah.
Welcome to the show. For the one person in the audience who doesn't know who you are, you want to tell us like how you ended up coming to survivalism and then ending up on this show here. Like, why are you here?
I got interested in like primitive survival skills as a kid, you know, rubbing sticks and doing that kind of stuff. And living and growing up in Florida, you know, hurricanes are a thing. You've got to be ready for that kind of stuff. And I remember going through one as a teenager and seeing the people waiting in their cars in these long lines for their bag of ice and their gallon jug of water the National Guard was handing out. And my family, we never had to do that stuff. But I told myself then, I was like, I'm never going to be that guy. And so I kept learning survival skills and stuff. And it's developed primitive, but then it started morphing into what I like to refer to as modern survival. And so been practicing that for quite some time. Been into firearms forever. Just kind of through the way the world works, fell into training with a lot of tier 1 dudes, and being a contractor for DOD, doing that as well. And I started writing the books that everybody knows about. That's what most folks know is I started writing those because I worked on the road and I spent a lot of time in hotels, and I don't like to go sit in bars. I'm not that dude. So instead, I'd rather get a bottle of whiskey and sit in the hotel room with my laptop, where I was on a lot of survival forums. I wrote a lot of pieces on them. I was very active back then. And one night I was actually at home and I was sitting there reading a story in a fiction section. And I was like, these are all kind of cool, but they're sort of missing something for me. And so I said, what the hell? I'm going to write one. I'm like, that much thought went into it. And I'm like, I'm going to make it an EMP and make it as bad as it can be. And then just started writing. And I wrote like 5,000 words the first night, posted it on the forum, went to bed, didn't really think a lot about it. And was on my way to work the next morning, took my BlackBerry out. And which is funny, I found that BlackBerry yesterday. And just looked at the forum, and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of replies. And like literally that was the moment it took off. Like, because back then, the only thing out was really 1 second after and the Patriots. And then you had to go back into like the 70s, William Johnstone, Out of the Ashes and stuff like that to find, material in the genre. So it was perfect timing. I guess folks liked the story because, I mean, we ended up taking over the forum. The owner of the forum really didn't like me because we kind of ran roughshod over his forum. And he kicked me off once and the entire forum rebelled and he had to let me back on. But then he basically gave me my own sub forum where you had to have a secondary password to even get into it. And it was a whole thing. But, it's what started this. And so now I'm a full-time writer. It's what I do. I travel around and train, with guys. We do expos. I consult. I'm consulting on a large bunker project right now, a fairly substantial one. Interesting concept and stuff. We'll talk more about that as it comes along, but it's going to be a cool concept. And if this works, it's something we're going to start expanding, and it'll be many of these things around. The kind of situation that's going to allow people to buy in, basically.
That's cool.
And have everything there when they walk through. They can come naked and they're good. So
was that Frugal Squirrels or was that ARFCOM?
Actually, it was survivalist boards.
Okay. All right.
Old Cav at survivalist boards. He hated us. He hated us. Because we really did kind of just run roughshod over his forum.
Yeah.
But that story, I brought more members to that forum than anything. I had the most views of any contributor to his forum. The Going Home alone had 2 million views on that thread. So I mean, it was very well known, very well viewed, and Angry American was just my username there. That was it. And when those guys there started pushing me to publish the book, I was like, I'm no writer. I said, nobody's going to pay money for this garbage. I'm like, here, I'll write you another one. So I wrote Surviving Home on the forum, But then one of my buddies posted my PayPal account. He's like, let's send him money and we'll make him do it. And people did, to my surprise. They sent like $4,000. People donated like $4,000. And so I was like, all right, still wasn't taking this. I'm like, look, I'll get it made into a book if you guys will just shut up and leave me alone. So I just paid what they call a vanity press to do it. They did a terrible job. The first editions are awful. But the first month it hit Amazon, it made a quarter of my annual salary. And I went, oh, there may be something to this. And so I started to take it serious. I was in the process of publishing Surviving Home the same way I did Going Home when Penguin Books called and made an offer. And I turned them down on their first offer, which blew their minds. But they called back 2 weeks later with an offer I couldn't say no to.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So I did 5 books with them. And then we were negotiating to do more books. And as they say, negotiations broke down. They used a turn of phrase that I didn't care for. And I told the guy, I said, if we were in the same room right now, I said, I would knock your teeth out of your head. And told him at that point I was contractually fulfilled. I said, I've negotiated a good faith with you. Gave him a few choice words after that and said, I've decided to go a different direction, and hung up the phone. And so started doing it myself. Now I just self-publish them and,
awesome.
Make more money per sale that way by a long shot. So
yeah,
it's worked out well.
You're a classic example of somebody who starts something and listens to the audience they develop when they're asking for something, which for some reason seems really hard for a lot of people. But people were screaming for your book, and you were still like, "No, I'm not going to do it."
I just didn't take it serious. It's not that I didn't want to. I was just like, I'm not a writer. I'm not, because the first, like, if you guys have read it on the forum, and there's people in the comments I see that have, it was so terrible. Because remember, I was usually sitting in a hotel room with a bottle of whiskey. If you got one of those, if you got the hardback, that's even more rare. I've got 2 hardbacks and 1 softback of the first edition left. And one of those has an unreleased cover that no one's ever seen. All the other ones I had lost in a fire, but I just wasn't taking it serious at the time. I didn't consider this as a path. It's one of those, you can't see the forest for the trees. And it was literally the members of that forum that browbeat me into doing it. But then, like you just said, I immediately in my head went, the best way in the world to make money is to sell people exactly what they're asking for. And so this is, like I said, this turned into my living. This is what I do. So I try to keep quality books out there, well-grounded, good stories. People seem to really like the characters and the way the characters develop. And I take that to heart. I don't read book reviews no more. Stopped that years ago. But I do listen to social media messages, and I read every message that comes to me, and I listen to what people have to say. So, and I know what I like. That's the other thing. I know what I like to read. So I try to write like that.
Well, you have so many characters in there. I think that everybody can relate to one and see themselves as that person. And then you have so many also that we all have those friends that are those characters. And then as we stumble through life, we actually meet those real guys from that book.
Yeah. Like I met through a buddy of mine, Donnie Dunn. I met the real life Sarge. To me, Sarge is always Arlie Ermy. When I picture him and when I'm writing him. But the guy walking the face of the earth that is Sarge, his name is Andy Bell. He's a 2nd Bat Ranger, 1st Sergeant, and retired. And he is Sarge. He's a piece of work. He's the living incarnation of the guy. So it's really funny. Like you said, you never know when you're going to meet him. You're going to be like, oh, I know this guy.
Yeah.
Some of the lessons I think are great from your books are how the characters sort of develop. Like they start out kind of, this is what we're gonna like preppers are now. Like if there's a problem, this is fictionally what I'm gonna do. And then they get in there and it's not what they were expecting. And there's some great lessons there. Like you spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Well, we all have theories, and as the old, the old adage that no plan survives first contact. But, you know, visualization is a real thing. The NBA did a study on visualization several years ago at this point, where they had players sit in like almost in a meditative state and picture themselves every motion of doing free throws, like just sit there and visualizing it, and their percentage increased accuracy at like 30%. They got 30% better just visualizing it. And so I try to put these little things in the book to get people's brains to turn and start to think. And we're going to have loads of problems when this goes down. And I try to think of all the various things that could possibly happen and might happen and would happen and how can we overcome them. And I don't know all the answers by no stretch of the imagination. I'm just like everybody else out there. I'm learning and doing every day, as we all are. I just have the ability to share that a little bit. And I like to weave those things into the story, because if one day in a bad situation, someone remembers something from the book that will make a difference to them, that's a win. That to me, that's the best win. That's the epic win. If it can change somebody or save somebody's life or change their life in that critical moment. So that's why I'm always trying to weave that stuff in there.
If you think about how people learn, we learn within the context of story.
You learn better that way, yeah.
Yeah, and things stick better. And so those little breadcrumbs that you leave, like your first book, when he talked about choosing what to put in his backpack. For me, I thought, why is my hiker's backpack not in my car just ready to go? There's no reason for this. I have stuff in my car, but if I really had to walk somewhere that doesn't take up that much space, it can have all the things I'd need anyway, and it's done. And then you don't have to think about, okay, now what am I going to put into this backpack that's in my car?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I study, I'm a big student. I do a lot of reading and I watch a lot of videos, but I primarily study civil conflict around the world, modern civil conflict, and then disaster responses, and not how governments and people like that respond, but how the normal people respond and deal with what's occurring to them. And you learn a lot of valuable lessons like that. Like Selko was the big guy back in the day. Everybody listened to Selko, and I've spoke to him several times, and was supposed to go to Croatia actually to do training with him in like 2018 when things got real hot in Ukraine, and they called us and just said basically like, you're Americans, you better not come over here. So me and Alan Kay was going to go with me, and the two of us changed our minds and we didn't go because they're like, it's just going to be too big a security risk. So it's I like to see how people cope and deal with it for real, because there's not many people in America with an experiential frame of reference. They've never lived through the kind of stuff that we're going to live through. So we should be looking at those that have. The difference is that there is no other nation like America. And our experience of whatever happens is going to be entirely different than has ever happened before anywhere. So it's kind of hard to war game.
So go ahead, John.
I see Bob Lester said J.A. Dudley. He said J.A. Dudley is the real Thad. And for sure, if Angery American, I'm sure you've not met J. Dudley, but when you see him, you will completely understand that. David Crawford, Lights Out, for you guys that are mentioning that. I am quoted on the back of the book for Lights Out. We watched that get written on ARFCOM. And what a lot of people don't realize is these stories come to life and fruition as soon as you publish that book. Those forums where you built that book and gave it to them, they kick you off those forums. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they do.
But it's wild.
Hey, if I see some people mention Lights Out there, if you guys will start squeezing David by the short and curlies, I am doing my best to get him to turn that into an audiobook. He
was here 6 months ago. In the building, hung out here for the day, and we had that conversation over and over. I did see that the Bug Out, his short story, went up as an audiobook.
Yeah. Well, I've hooked him up with an audiobook publisher. I hooked him up with my manager. I mean, I've done everything in the world trying to persuade him to do it, because I told him, I said, brother, number one, so many people want it. I mean, so many people want. I said, and you will make a fortune on this audiobook, to help you do whatever you got to do in life. A lot of people don't like talking about making the money, but this is a for-profit enterprise. What I do, I don't do this stuff for free. And I'm like, people are begging for lights out and audio. I'm like, I'm going to buy it, and I don't even read books in this genre anymore at all, because I don't want other people's ideas in my head. So I avoid the genre entirely. I read a lot of nonfiction, that kind of stuff, but no more fiction in this genre, which is kind of a bummer because I used to really like reading it.
It's a great way to not accidentally plagiarize somebody, though.
Yeah. And I just don't want to do that. I don't want other people's, and a member comes in. Yeah. Well, I'll do the council if they stop doing them at 8 a.m. And that was what killed me there for a little while, because I'm usually up till, last night was 5:30 in the morning working on some stuff. And so, me getting up at 8 is a little rough, but,
okay. I have a question for you that I have heard nobody ask you. I'm sure they have before, but what brand of whiskey is your favorite?
Oh man, that's like asking which of your kids is your favorite.
You can give us 2 or 3.
I'm trying to think of one. There's one. I always forget the name of this. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna text. I'll get an answer because Bushwood. Okay, Bushwood is one of my favorites, and I didn't do the math on this. I was given a bottle of it by my buddy Bob Toombs last year, and was shocked at how good this stuff was. And the stopper on the bottle is a golf ball, like a pewter golf ball. And I was like, that's weird. And I kept looking at it, trying to figure out what the hell is this on here for, and what is it? I didn't place it as a golf ball first. And then I happened to be at home one evening, and I started watching Caddyshack and realized that Bushwood is the name of the country club in Caddyshack. And so this Bushwood whiskey with a golf ball on top of it is a nod to Caddyshack. And it is fantastic whiskey. I mean, it is extremely good. And Whistle Pig, well, yeah, I'm a big Whistle Pig fan. This one's going to sound absurd. Chicken Dick, believe it or not.
We have it upstairs. Yeah.
Some people have never heard of it.
Yeah.
I like that one too. I like Russell's, I'm a fan of their ryes. So yeah, I mean, I got some horse soldiers sitting over here. All 3 varieties of those are sitting on the table right over here to my left. But I also like Scotch, Oban, I was a big fan of that one. So, yeah. I won't say no to much whiskey. Bullet, I'll drink that too. Yeah.
Yeah, Bullet's drinkable for sure.
Yeah.
I like Woodford.
I like Woodford. That's a good stable. That's a good stable. Baker's, Booker's, all of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not just whiskey. You like all of the different kinds of brown liquors.
Yeah, I'll drink most of them. So I've cut back on my consumption though. I went through my Hemingway phase for a while. When I lived in South Carolina, I would pull up to the liquor store in Pendleton, which is a tiny little town. And I would pull up in front of the liquor store, and the owner of the liquor store would meet me at the door with a cardboard box. And he would follow me around the store. And then when he was ringing me up, he'd always be like, man, you got good taste. He's just, but you going to the liquor store spending $700-800 a month, I was like, I probably need to back off a little bit. This is a little bit much. So I slowed way down on that. Oh, Pappy, I've had a bottle of Pappy. At the time, I was not as knowledgeable in whiskey as I am now, but I had a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle that was given to me as a gift. It had a $35.99 price tag on it. Is what I assumed it was.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't know jack about it. I was sitting in this room. This used to be my office. Now it's my studio. At my desk one night working, and I was like, "What the hell?" I'm gonna crack that open. I'm sitting there working, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's good." I mean, that's really good. And I drank about 3/4 of that bottle that night before I even Googled it to see what I had in my hand. And then I shit myself when I realized how much of it I had drank, what I was drinking. And then I said, to hell with it. I'm going to go ahead and finish $4,500 worth of whiskey tonight. And I did. I finished the bottle, put the stopper on it, put it on a bookshelf in my office, because in my search online, I found out that empty bottle is worth $700. And my wife cleaned my office and threw it away.
Oh, you could have had an eBay score.
I was gonna sell the bottle for sure. I mean, but yeah, she threw the bottle away. But hey, that stuff, that's next level. It was amazing. Amazing. That best whiskey I've ever had, by far, that was. And a buddy of mine, that he gave it to me. He found it in a little bitty mom and pop liquor store over in West Florida. And it was high up on the shelf behind the register. And he saw it. He asked the guy, he's like, is that for sale? And he's like, yeah. And he gets it, and the bottle was all dusty. And the old man looked at it. And he's like, $35.99. And my buddy's like, I'll take it. Like,
sold. It's funny how those so if you drive a lot, guys, you can go out, and if you're into interesting flavored booze, stop at those tiny little liquor stores, because that is where you'll find things like that just the price was what it was when they bought it. It's been there for a long time. They are unaware of what has happened to the market, and you can score some good stuff.
You can. Especially, I mean, the bottle still had dust on it when he gave it to me. And he was smiling like from ear to ear. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll give it a shot. He's like, you'll like it.
Well, your little small town liquor stores have all those allocations because the locals are coming in there to buy the cheapest stuff they can get. They're not buying the $200-$300 bottles. So in the big cities, those things are wiped out. But when you catch those small little stores, man, they still have that stuff.
Yeah. Because you're right. It's allocated from the distributors. And if they don't sell it, and two, if if it's granddad's liquor store and he retires and somebody else takes over, they may not understand what's in there. So it's worth it.
Yeah,
$4,000 a night, Bob. Yeah, it was, man.
I hope that book was a good one.
Yeah, I've had more expensive nights in Vegas, but I wasn't paying for it, and that was pretty good too. So yeah. There's some good stuff out there. I met a fifth group dude on South Beach in Miami. We were going to Key West, but we were staying down in Miami for one night, and he was in the room beside us. And my wife has raised and rehabbed and had pet squirrels for years. Presently, thank God, we don't have any. But she had one with her. So she's standing on the balcony of the Hilton looking down at South Beach with a squirrel running around on her. And this little scrawny dude comes out on the balcony next to me smoking a cigar, and he looks at it, he goes, is that a freaking squirrel? And I was like, yeah. And we started talking and found out he's a fifth group guy. And so he's throwing me gun magazines from across the balconies. And he's like, you want to go to dinner tonight? We're like, yeah. He's like, let's go to Prime Fish. We're like, cool. And we had my wife's friend and her boyfriend at the time, and then him and his wife. And we go down there, and he goes, you ever had Macallan scotch? And I was like, nah. He goes, all right. He goes, we're going to drink them all tonight. And I was like, all right. So we started at 12 and worked our way up to the 24. And then when you get to the 24, it's like $3.50 a shot, depending on where you are. And like our tab was huge for dinner. And this guy, I mean, this big around, probably like 5'8". He ordered a whole red snapper that was like this big, the whole fish. And they bring this huge fish, they set it out. He looks across the table, like, this is the third one of these I've eaten this week. And I was like, oh my God. And he bought dinner. He just bought the whole thing. He paid for everybody's dinner, this dude. He was been blown up 3 or 4 times. He shot to pieces and had a big ranch in Texas. And he was just a great dude. We had a lot of fun. So you never know who you're going to meet or where. And Macallan is classy. Yeah, ours was expensive. I'll tell you that. That dinner was a 4-figure dinner way up there. It was like $7,500. Mm-hmm. This guy just paid for dinner. So.
Yeah, Johnny Walker Triple Black is a surprise find because the blue is really good, but the black is less expensive and also very tasty. That's one Jack Spirko and I have had a few of those over the years. So.
Oh, hey, Rapier, I don't drink IPAs, man. No, IPAs are...
do you do beer at all, or do you just stick to the whiskey?
Only if the water's bad where I'm at.
Isn't that what beer was made for?
Yeah. If I'm someplace where I don't trust the water, I'll drink beer.
I was reading an old like medieval era treatment plan for somebody with the flu, and they said give them beer because it puts color back in their face and gives them some calories. Basically, I didn't say calories in this, but basically gives them something energy to work off of. And I thought, and it probably doesn't have cholera active in it.
Right, a loaf of bread.
Yeah, there you go. Pork chop in a can, loaf of bread in a can. Yep. So absolutely. That and grog, that's why the sailors put rum in their water and mixed rum and water was to make it safe to drink grog. That's why they got their daily rum ration, was to make sure they didn't get dysentery or cholera or anything on the ship.
So can a man make a living writing survival novels?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I think my success, it's despite my best efforts. Like I said, I refused the idea of publishing this initially, but settled into it rather quickly. And you can I make more doing this than I ever did working, and I made good money when I was working. But I think a big thing that sets me apart, I'm not bashing nobody out there. This ain't aimed at anybody in particular. Like I said, when I came out, there was 1 second after, and then there was Rawls's books, and there really wasn't much else. And I've been a practitioner of these skills for close to 40 years. I live the lifestyle. I go out and train. I take contracts at places like Robin Sage and things like that. I work with the military. I do a lot of weapons training. I still do bushcrafty skills, just to maintain, know how to do it and keep it going. So I'm writing from an experiential frame of reference. I like to use that term because it's one that my buddy Alan Kay kind of said to me one time, and it struck a chord with me. Once you've done something, okay? Until then, it's all theory. So YouTube is full of theory in my mind. People watching these guys on YouTube do stuff because none of them show their failures. I failed epically on TV. Not a fail to me, but that's what everybody called it. And what I told them is like, well, you guys weren't there. You guys didn't see those wolves. And it's a known thing for me and canines. We don't always click. They were 3 very large timber wolves. I mean, they were probably $120, $140 pounds. I mean, these were not little dogs, and they were within 30 feet of me, just kind of circling back and forth in front of my hooch I was in, because I had a sheer rock wall behind me. I couldn't go that way, So I waited and waited and waited and waited. And in Vancouver at night, it is so dark. It's like being underground. There's no man-made light. There's no starlight, moonlight, because the cloud cover is so thick. It's literally like being underground. And that didn't bother me so much as just being able to hear them moving and tracking their movements and where they were and what they were up to. And I waited hours, finally I'm like, and they just kept getting closer. So I finally got a signal on the sat phone and got a call out to them. I'm like, look, there's a pack of wolves down here, at least 3 of them. I said, and they're just getting closer to me. I said, you got to come get me the hell out of here. 14 hours later, their boat hit the beach. The sun was up. I'm standing out there on the beach, filming, actually talking about how stupid it was. And they took me out. And I'm like, all right, cool. If that's it, I'm out. I'll go out. But and it was surprising the number of people that commented on it that sit at home and watch YouTube while they're eating
Always.
their Cheetos. Yeah, while they're eating their Cheetos, and adding shit to their Amazon cart, so that they can, so they can cosplay, that they're survivalists or preppers. And I'm not that guy, but it's like my gear looks like shit. My equipment is beat to hell because I use my stuff. I don't have pristine equipment. Everything I have is functional. We did a book, Alan Kay and I, called Decline and Decay, Strategies for Surviving the Coming Unpleasantness. And in that, we have a chapter called Pressure Testing. And it's pressure testing ourselves. It's pressure testing our gear. It's pressure testing our philosophies and our companions. People start talking about MAG groups and things like that, and building these groups. And I don't have one here. I'm not where I'm at. I'm kind of solo. I don't even have I do have a solid one solid wingman here that I know I can rely on, because that dude's pressure tested. I know how he's going to respond in a situation. I don't want to have guys on my team that I've never spent a night in the woods with, only to discover that one of them, for some reason, will lose his absolute mind over mosquitoes. I've seen it happen, like in real time. So taking the time to really get to know people and going out and doing unpleasant things. We had a little group here that would get together on occasion and do stuff, but the weather had to be perfect. They didn't want to do any training with weapons and stuff unless it was going to be cooler. So you couldn't do it in the summertime. It's just too hot. Nobody wanted to go camping when it was raining, and so I just stepped away from it eventually, because it was, I wasn't doing them any favors, and they certainly weren't doing me any. So I just stepped away from it.
Well, that's a great point. The people often ask how to develop those close, trusting relationships with people that you can count on. And when you brought that up, it got me to thinking, like, the people who are closest to my inner circle, most of them have been through some crap with me.
Yeah.
Like, we've had to deal with some things, and because of that, we know what we are like in that situation, and that just takes time.
It does take time, and in particular, it takes for the best bonds. Okay, like someone right there just said, because something about that's it right there. Yeah, because real shit only happens in good weather, and that's how people think. Adversity builds bonds among people that you can't duplicate. It's like when you and your buddies, you go out and you go hunting. And you go out and you have a good hunt, and someone makes a kill, and or everybody makes a kill, whatever, and you're high-fiving at the tailgates and drinking beers, and it's done. And it's awesome, and you'll talk about that story for a couple of weeks. But the story where you guys went out and the weather suddenly turned, and it was, sleet and snow or whatever, and somebody got lost, and it took hours to find them, or the trucks got stuck, and it was a miserable trip that everybody hated. You'll talk about that one for years.
Yep.
You will talk about that one for years. So, one of the things that I'd like to tell people is you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is not dead. If you're uncomfortable, you're still alive. Okay. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what's coming. In a big way. I'm almost certain there's going to be some sort of a cyber attack. Take your girlfriend camping before she becomes your wife. I got a feeling there's going to be some sort of attack against our power grid. Cyber in nature is my guess. So we're definitely going to have power issues this year. I think we're going to see another summer of love. I think the useful idiots will once again be released upon the streets. It's just going to be a different flavor this time. And this time it's probably going to be illegal immigrants that are going to be out burning cities to the ground. For their rights, all the rights they have here. And then plus with the election, it's just get ready to be uncomfortable, folks, because
they've been telegraphing that punch for 2 years. I mean, why should we not believe them? And they're going to, it's going to be this guy or this guy, when really, I mean, we know who it is. We know where it's coming from. I mean, they've been testing that power grid. I mean, you can go back to the beginning of the Discovery Channel talking about if 2 of these transfer stations on the Arizona border get knocked out. I mean, we've already seen the entire West Coast above Northern California blackout all the way into Canada. New York was out for 48. I mean, why should we not believe them? Like, they keep telling you this is going to happen, the powers that are going to cause it.
Yeah. Well, and then too, so a few weeks ago, you had a DHS spokesperson, that woman that came out and said, "Oh, we fully anticipate a black swan event this year. It's going to happen. We just don't know what it's going to look like." Then they start talking about Chinese actors hacking the power grid. Well, okay. Well, we're not really going to know who's going to hack our power grid. It's a sad statement that we live in a time where we cannot trust a word our government says, and nor can we trust what we hear out of the media.
Do you think there ever was a time when we could trust the government, though? Really?
Probably not, but you used to be able to trust the media. There was a time when journalism was real. You look at things like Watergate and those kind of things. Woodward and Bernstein. Those are real journalists that would burn these people to the ground. For Comedy Survival Dating Guide. I've got some jokes about that from me and Alan Kay. Woo! But there used to be real journalism that would hold them into account, and so they were a little more careful. So now there are no more journalists. We simply have propaganda outlets. That's what they are. Everything is a propaganda outlet. And we now also have the Ministry of Truth. We have big tech that will decide what is fact and what is fiction, and what you can and cannot know. So now how can we can't even find the truth now. You walk around in the world. I hear someone could call me on the phone and be like, "Dude, I'm watching a dragon crawl out of the earth right now," and I would be like, "Does it breathe fire?" I mean, I wouldn't disbelieve about anything right now, and you just can't believe everything you hear. It's a sad state. Like Go ahead.
I was going to say the extra layer to that is with the AI created videos. The tools that we have access to are pretty realistic, surprisingly, and those are the ones we have access to.
And so I've been talking about this for a few years now, and I've been saying that in the very near future, the feds will have the ability to manufacture evidence against enemies of the state. And by that, I mean people accused of wrongthink. They will have your voice and probably even video of you saying and doing whatever it is they want to accuse you of, and you will have no way to prove it's not you.
Yeah, they're going to knock on the door in 2 years for things you said yesterday. And they have data collection. Everybody should operate as though everything you say or type, there's a record of it. And when they want you and you've made their radar, they will find your crime. They assign a team of analysts, they find it, and if they don't find it, we know that they will plant it.
I had an incident with something like that not very long ago, where something was found on my property that was not my property. It's stuff does happen. There's no doubt about it. And it's a nervous world at the moment for me personally. Because I'm my eyes are open. Like I said, I'm a student of history. So I'm studying the conflicts that happen around the world. I'm studying the ones that are happening here very closely. The problem is that when it kicks off here, it's not going to look like what anybody thinks it's going to look like. I'm very curious to see Obama's Civil War movie and the fantasy of that. And it's going to be interesting to watch that. But even that's not going to be, I think, remotely close to what we're going to be seeing here.
What kind of American? Yeah, what kind of American?
Well, and so I think, there's symbology and messaging everywhere. And that line out of that movie is going to be something that will be repeated millions of times probably in the coming troubles. We're going to be like Ireland. We're going to go through a period of the troubles real soon.
What do you see the troubles looking like?
Well, the maps are being drawn.
But see, maps aren't going to work. Maps are fairly useless in this instance. There will be safe areas and there will be unsafe areas, but even in the safe areas, they're all going to be soft targets. And because of the demand for convenience and things, security is not convenient. So people are going to resist it for a long time. I have a feeling it's going to look a lot like South American and Mexican cartel work. It's going to be people sitting in their car on their way to work at a traffic light, and they just happen to either be known by an opposing side as opposition, or they're flying the wrong flags via target indicators on their vehicle or the clothing they're wearing or something. And somebody's going to roll up beside them on a motorcycle and just shoot them and drive away. It's going to look a lot like that. I also predict a lot of improvised bombings of gathering places, bars, restaurants, shopping centers, grocery stores in the wrong cities, wrong towns. I have a feeling that the major cities, there'll be a purge where anybody who's not diehard leftist might get the opportunity to escape, but probably won't. And then the red counties around them will just blockade those cities, and they'll have to deal with essentially human wave attacks trying to come out of those places, because everybody thinks, oh, we'll just cut them off and starve them to death. Well, they're not going to just stay there. All right, they're going to go someplace. The Golden Horde is a real thing. And if you live near a large population center, you're going to deal with that. Population density is not your friend. So the lower the population density in your AO, the better off you are. And conduct an area study. And if you don't know how, look at Forward Observer. They'll teach you how to conduct an area study.
He's going to do an area study class Friday before Self-Reliance Festival. I just found that out today.
Cool. I was talking to him yesterday because he was supposed to be coming down here to do one. But he had some family issues and couldn't make it. So I was just talking to him yesterday about that.
Mike, so we'll get a link up to that on the website later today.
Yeah, Mike was out at SRF not last time, but the time prior.
Cool. All right.
That's the one where a tornado hit the event tent, and we had to get everybody who was camping to put it back up, which made the whole event awesome.
What?
That's classic example. It wasn't a big adversity, but they were yes, we can figure out how to put this up, and Self-Reliance Festival will start almost on time. It was great.
Yeah. Stryker there's got a great comment. And you are correct, because this idea of the American Minuteman, you know, all the stuff that people are doing, they forget the most important aspect to any unconventional warfare situation. I've been fortunate in that the Department of Defense has paid me a lot of money in recent years to train me in unconventional warfare. Logistics, folks. Logistics. You know, there's an old saying: amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. You've got to be able to feed, fuel, you know, the equipment, the rat lines, that stuff is real. Liquids are a bitch to move. Water, fuel, those things are difficult to move. Containers are a thing. You know, how many 5-gallon gas cans you got laying around your house? You know, how many jugs for water do you have laying around your house that are safe, that you can put potable water in to move? The list of stuff is
and are
enormous.
they full? And are they full?
Yeah. I've got 200-300 gallon tanks out here, you know, on my property, you know, and I know that only lasts for so long, but it'll be something. So, and it's not even for vehicles necessarily, but it's the logistics of things is going to be tough. And then to who you can trust, you know, IFF is going to be a big problem, you know, because everybody's going to be wearing civilian clothes, guys. You're not going to be seeing people kitted up, plated up, running around the streets. A Glock 19 or whatever in your waistband is going to be the most probably used combat item in the coming conflict, at least in the initial stages, until things kind of break out into open warfare. We're going to see a lot of they call it low level, but it's going to be very intense low level, in my opinion. Again, like I said, people getting shot at red lights, home invasions going down, businesses being hit, things like that, and targets of opportunity. You know, they're going to know that, well, we know that a bunch of the people we hate hang out over there, so we're going to go blow that place up one night. You know, IEDs aren't hard to make. You know, and there have been thousands of those people imported into this country that know how to do it. So
they're 22 million, they say, has come across. So even if we're at 1%, I mean, they're grabbing. You're having people. Groups of them push people onto train tracks. You're having them push people onto subways. You're having them arrested every day. It's starting to be reported. And that's just what they're telling you about. So if you look at collapsed societies in the past, you know, the big one that everybody knows is Germany, for instance, right? You had a lot of people that saw this coming and were able to get out. And then you had people that waited to the last minute trying to get out, to get onto ships to leave, and were actually turned away. Where do you think we are in comparison to something like that, as opposed to like getting out of the cities? Like, when is it going to be too late?
Well, you know, it kind of goes back to a Bible verse, you know, no man knows the day or the time. You know, that's just it. We don't know.
Yeah.
It could happen. It can happen right now. It could happen, you know, next year. But when you look at the critical mass of the overall, you look at all the target indicators that are taking place right now. It's getting close. You know, someone in the comments, I read one where said, if you're not prepping yet, you're almost too late. You're not too late, because anything you do is going to put you ahead. But I think this year, the call it what you want, deep state, the whatever cabal is that actually runs DC, is terrified of having a President Trump. They're going to do everything they can to stop it. I think up to and including an attempt on his life. I fully expect that to happen. If it's successful, I got a feeling that's kickoff. That'll be game day. Even if it's unsuccessful, it might be game day. It's just, and sadly, there'll probably be some folks on the right that will go out and do some stupid things that will then justify what the left has already planned and is ready to implement, which will be their crackdown. But I don't think that's going to work quite as well for them as they think it will, unless they've already got their imported soldiers trained up, spun up, and kitted up and ready to go. Because I know our military is not going to necessarily go along with it. The brass will, flag level guys, they're all going to, but everybody knows NCOs run the military, and they're not going to play ball. So there's going to be a whole lot of units departing with all their party favors, you know, and showing up with people they know. And that's going to be a problem. So
it looks to me like it's already happened. Because of what has been bubbling up, like the riots that have happened in cities, and you know, somebody keeps mentioning, look at what happened in Katrina. Like the culture is there, and hungry people will do amazing things, but then you make their kids hungry, they'll do even more.
Well, hunger and using food as a weapon starts more civil wars than anything else does. That's a fact, because hungry people fight, and that's what they will do. And we're seeing the assault on our food production here. All over the world, they're wanting to reduce food production at every level, but yet the population is still increasing. So that math doesn't work out. So it's already begun. If you've ever read Suvorov's book Spetsnaz, we're in the dark pink phase. We're about to go red, and red's the last phase where it's open conflict. So all these food production places that burn and the chicken farms that burn and all this stuff, the hits to infrastructure, all those things. That's all in the pink phase of beginning an insurgency. And they've got the ideological side of it locked down. We're divided as we can be, and everybody's ready to kill each other. And I think, there's somebody just waiting to blow the whistle. Not sure what the trigger point is, but I think this election's a pretty good one because they are just so afraid of him. They just came out with that list yesterday of ranking the presidents, and they ranked Trump dead last. So it's fake. This is BS. It's. Everybody said that Biden would go down as the worst president in history, surpassing Carter even for that slot. But somehow Trump is. Interesting. Yeah.
So before we scheduled this interview, you were talking about how important it is to think about solutions. Can you kind of riff on that? Because we've been in a dark place, and I think it's important to be situationally aware. But what does that mean for you, for me, for people in the live stream?
Well, you said the words situationally aware. Okay. Get your head out of Facebook every now and then and look around, pay attention. You've got to consume the propaganda being put out, but you've got to recognize it for what it is, so that something happened, but we can't take their word for why it happened. But all right, that happened and that happened and that happened, once, all right, twice, coincidence, three times, beginning of a pattern. Let's pay attention to these things and just be aware so that you're not having to live in fear, and be doing some preparations, be prepared, to live without electricity for extended periods. If the grid goes down, my background, I spent 20 years in heavy industrial construction, specializing in power plant construction. I built them all over the country. I know the power grid very well in this country. When it goes down, it could take a decade to get it all back up, probably even longer. Probably longer. And they'll focus on population centers, things like cities first, which oddly enough will be the last place that needs it, because by that time there won't be anybody in them, and there won't be much left of them. People will be out in the country in the more rural areas. If you have the ability to relocate from a high population density area, do so. If you can't afford to move, find a place. If you can just buy a patch of land that you could get to and call yours, or you got friends and family, do that. And the one thing I would stress too is water. If you run out of water, you will go to water. It's a fact. It's not something you can avoid. You're going to have it. So have a water solution plan. If you can put in a well and put a hand pump on it, as well as a well pump. Be proactive, so you're not always going to be reactive, and it makes you feel better when you're being proactive too. It's hard to do, but look at your life, look at what it's going to take to man, because everybody's different, right? I can't tell everybody how they need to do it. Look at your life, understand what your limitations and needs are, and your situation where you are on the ground, and start addressing those issues. But be aware. That's the best thing you can do. Be aware. You don't want to be one of those people trying to hit the interstate when it's already bottlenecked and backed up for 25 miles, and you're not going to ever get out of that. You don't want to be one of those people. So you either want to be aware enough that you see it coming where you can move first, or you understand that you're not moving, and this is what I do now. This is it. This is how it looks, and be prepared to deal with it. Be ready to deal with it. The organism that adapts the quickest to the new environment is the one that will survive.
I interviewed somebody yesterday. This story might interest you. I interviewed somebody yesterday who, the way he got his homestead 6 years ago is he had $3,000 saved, and he put the rest. He put $7,000 on a credit card and bought 1 acre of land. That acre of land had an unlivable, full of holes, had been used as a meth lab, single wide on it.
Yep.
And it had a second single wide that when he bought the place, the city told him he had to get it off the land because it was a hazard.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up living in one room that he was able to shove cardboard into the holes and make it quote unquote livable. Would not be livable by anybody's standard. Grow food and start producing some of his own food while looking for ways to earn money locally there. And eventually got rid of that other trailer, fixed up the mobile home as much as he could. And through the telling of that story and through selling market produce and other things, rain barrels was one of them, because he was developing all of these off-grid skills. He's like, I didn't know anything about anything. He was able to have enough money to buy a cabin that went up for sale a few years later, sold the acre to a contractor who has continued running it as a homestead. And that's how he did it. And that is all about how he sacrificed to make it happen. So when I hear people say, I can't buy a piece of land or I can't find it, I think you have to choose to, and then you will find a way, whatever that looks like for you.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
They have too many options where they remain comfortable. They have no. We've now been pressure tested, right? We say the same thing all the time. They don't have any calluses, and there's just too many options. If you think you're gonna, during the event of emergency, you're gonna take off, and you've got these ideas that you're gonna go out on foot, that's all great until you have a child with you. That does not work that way. Like, so be out beforehand. Do you have a family? Do you love your family? Then put them, they can tolerate some difficulty, especially when they're young. Move into a place where the problem doesn't exist. We saw all kinds of riots. We saw all kinds of shit burnt down. Remarkably, the banks buy all that property that burnt up, almost like that's a plan.
Crazy, isn't it?
But that shit, none of it happened. The police didn't lock us down. We didn't have mandates here. In Tennessee, for the most part, if you went from Nashville to Columbia, Tennessee, everything was in color in Columbia and everything was black and white in Nashville, like just crossing the county line. There was hundreds of people out. Everything was operating. We didn't do any of that nonsense. Like, there were still businesses open. The sign said that the lights were off, but when you looked inside, it was like a speakeasy. Shit was still happening.
Yeah.
Just go where we're not doing the reindeer games.
Exactly. And Florida was the same way. I mean,
yeah.
COVID wasn't much of an impact on us. I didn't modify my life in the least bit. The stores, businesses that we used were open. I would put a mask on if requested on entry. I didn't wear a mask, but I also didn't argue. That's your store. You want me to? I'll put one on. But as soon as I walk out, I'm taking it off. We didn't engage in any of the BS. I stayed at home and watched it on TV, laughing, at what was going on and how people were behaving. But I'd also gotten a heads up. I knew about 2 weeks before the lockdown was coming that it was coming. I put it on Facebook, and you can go back and find it where I did. And people are giving me a lot of shit because it's always well, what's your source? We don't believe you unless you. I'm like, that's not how this works. I can't tell you who these people are because they'll go to fucking prison. But I had gotten 3 warnings, and by the time I got the 3rd one, I was like, all right, this is legit. And what I was warned was coming. What we ended up with was a watered down version of that. I was initially told it was going to be a full 30-day locked in your home, you're not coming out kind of an event. And then the lockdown did occur. And then all those people that were, giving me all this shit. Because one person had told me, they said, someone in your position, you should be held accountable for this fear mongering. Because all I was doing was like, hey guys, get ready to be in your homes for like up to 30 days, like not being able to leave your property, like expect that there's something coming. And then when it did happen, it was crickets. Nobody came back and said, oh shit, you were right.
They never do.
Yeah, they never do. But they want to give you a ton of shit. And the who's your source thing is the one that always blows my mind. We're not going to believe you. Oh, but if I give you a name of somebody that you don't fucking know, now you're going to believe me, and that's not how this works. Human intel is a thing. It is a network that takes decades to develop. You think I'm going to lose that that to some rando on Facebook. No, that's not happening. So
Yeah, that's where my former life as a public policy person helps, because I still have contacts with the people who do that.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
absolutely were like, these shutdowns are happening. This is the template legislation that, or the executive orders that the governors are going to use. And at that point, I was like, hey, Mom, maybe make sure you got some extra groceries now while you can.
yeah.
And yeah, you do get information, and something like stocking up on some food and basic necessities. Like, what harm is there if there isn't a shutdown and you have 30 days of food? Like, okay, now I don't have to go to the grocery store for a month. That's actually a time benefit. We just lost your audio. All right, John.
All right. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? I mean, all these guys, what were you just pretending when you were making all those posts on the internet? Did you not have 30 days of food anyways? I mean, you guys all talk about having a garden and stuff. Yep. Everybody panics when 556 goes up in price. You guys, these are the good old days right now. They're never going back to where they were. Don't you guys? Where'd those 55-gallon drums of 556 you guys bought go? Like, don't you still have? What'd you just sell it? Where'd it go? Why are you in a panic mode now?
You're living the salad years right now. It's this, like you said, this is the good old days.
I've watched you guys post for the last 10 years. I mean, you should have a castle. I mean, was it all bullshit?
We ran out and made one trip to a Save-A-Lot. I was like, let's just go grab some extra stuff, stuff that can sit on the shelf. I mean, we really had everything. I mean, we didn't buy a single roll of TP leading up to it. We weren't those people. But we hit the Save-A-Lot. I had a buddy with me, and I was getting some stuff from him because I knew he didn't have much. And I was like, get whatever you need, fill up a cart, whatever the hell you need, we're going to get that too. And so we were out in the parking lot loading up my truck, and this other truck comes in. He kind of circles the parking lot, drives around us, and then kind of parks beside me. And he gets out and he's like, looks at me. He's like, you know something I don't?
Yep.
I said, well, let's just say I have an idea. And I said, it might be a good idea to stock up, And he goes, I know who you are, Chris. And he walked right in there. He walked right in the grocery store and started loading carts. So some people, situational awareness, right? Paying attention. And you're right in that a lot of us have been storing this stuff up for a decade or more, and you shouldn't really be in a panic right now. You should just be ready and being ready to implement those plans. We've got a few things we're doing around here. I'm putting another hand pump on a well that's coming up, and I'm buying some solar power. Not a full solar power system. I need equipment that's portable, so I'm actually purchasing some large scale portable things. All that's happening here in a couple of months, just because I know for a fact we're going to lose power. I have a well. That system will run my well, but I want a hand pump too, just in case. Because water is just that important. There's no way to have too many water sources or solutions. So if you're not ready, now's the time to do those last things and get ready. So, and like you said, what's the worst? You got extra food laying around, or you don't need to buy range ammo for the next 3 years. So what,
Yeah. I mean, and if you store what you actually eat, that's important too.
It absolutely is, because especially for children, and people forget about kids. So number one, make kids part of the plan, make them feel useful and like they're contributing, and it gives them something to do. So they're not just sitting around bugging the shit out of you. And plan for those little morale boosts for kids, treats, big thing for a kid, and for adults too. People underestimate the value of this. I did a contract where I had stuffed a bunch of MRE desserts into a little stuff sack, and it was buried in my ruck. And over the course of 10 days, that stuff sack became my reward every day. If I made it through the day, everything was great. When I could finally lay down against that ruck, I could pull that bag out and eat one of those sweet treats. And I looked forward to it every day. It was literally what got me through my day. I know that in a few more hours, I can lay back against this ruck and I'm going to pull that thing out. And I'm going to sit and I can do that. And no one's going to bother me. And everything's going to be cool for just a few minutes. And so a morale boost like that's a big deal, plan for that. And one thing I would recommend to people with kids too, hit the thrift store, buy them shoes in 2 and 3, 4 sizes up, some more clothes as well, and get with your friends. And if everybody's got kids of different ages and stuff, let's start trading out, because they're going to keep growing when this happens. Them feet ain't going to stop growing, and you're going to need to be able to clothe those children. So plan on that. I think that's something a lot of people don't think about.
You know, the child garb of 150 years ago starts making sense when you think about how fast kids grow. Where, you know, a lot, you know, like even boys had sort of dress like things until they were 4 or 5, and then they had pants that turned into shorts. And there's
or just overalls. Overalls was the thing, because you know that you could unhitch those straps and you could grow a little bit more, you know, and keep wearing them. So think about your kids, and too, the adults, think about yourselves. How many of you out there have durable, rugged clothing? I don't mean fashionable shit, because nothing is made to last. We live in a disposable society. So do you have durable, rugged clothing that can handle hard use? How about your footwear, right? Skechers aren't going to cut it. You know, you're going to need durable footwear, because you're going to go from a world where you jump in, where most of your walking is from the front door to your car, from your car, you know, across the parking lot into the office, you know, or across the parking lot into the grocery store. Some people go out and walk on, you know, trails, and some people hike and things, but they have a specific set of footwear for that. But you need more of those, because one pair of boots isn't going to cut it, you know, per person. You're going to need more than one, and because you're going to wear them out, because you're going to be living on the soul train. And most of us don't walk enough to actually wear out our footwear. We usually destroy them in other fashions before the soles ever give out. But that'll be a real thing. You know,
and 10 years is the number. Your footwear will break down in 10 years, even if you don't wear it.
Oh, absolutely. It'll dry out and fall apart. So
that's another thing, is if you've been storing your boots for 20 years, you might want to put those puppies on and see if they're still good.
Yeah, I pulled a pair of boots out of my closet the other day. It was the last pair of boots I was wearing when I was doing industrial construction, and shit, I've been out of that forever. And I pulled them things out and looked at them, and I was like, well, yeah, I guess they're done. They're out of here. They're not even salvageable at this point, because, like you just said, they've been sitting in the closet for over 10 years. You know, they're just shot now. So having extra footwear around, extra pants, you know, rugged stuff, guys, not fashionable clothing. You're not going to care about what it looks like. You're going to, you know, want it to do its job, because what is our clothing? Is our first layer of shelter. That is what our clothing is. So plan accordingly, and get some decent stuff.
And have a little knowledge. Even look at how you're going to make footwear. Look at how the Amish make clothing, right? It's the lost ways, the old ways, you know, stuff like that. It's still there. And right now we have more access than you will ever have in the future to it. If something happens. So buy some manuals, some publications, some books, open those things up, and make sure you have the appropriate tools for that. If you think you're going to take tire tread and make shoes and make soles and build a shoe off of that tire tread, how are you going to pierce that rubber, right? You might want to have a brace and a bit set and actually have those things, and don't just put them in a shed. Make sure you actually have everything that goes with that. Every time I buy a giant saw, I look at my wife and I go, man, I hope we never have to use this shit for real. But we have them. I mean, just know it, right? Put them, get together with your buddies or whoever, and just have a shed with that stuff in there.
Low tech always works.
Starting with that storage of things that you use, that's important. But then thinking, like, the next level is thinking about, how am I self-reliant in this one issue, and doing that one thing at a time. Like, I will never buy garlic again as long as I live here. For example, I have been garlic self-reliant since 2008.
Nice.
And, you know, that's done, right? Okay, so then you move on to the next thing. Now, what else can I be self-reliant on? Is it going to be something creative like footwear or clothing? Like, am I making my own fabric and making my own clothes? Or is it going to be something food-wise or water generation options? There's lots of things you can do one at a time.
And how do you become valuable in the future, right? How many people do we come in contact with every day whose means of living would simply cease to exist if computers stopped working, right? How many people make money right now off the internet, right? So if you have those skills and those tools and some knowledge, you're miles ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, a guy that can read a tape measure is going to be a hell of a lot more valuable than a guy that can code.
Yeah.
For sure. And develop skill sets, like I said, I'm an electrician by trade, but I'm also a ham radio operator. I'm also a survival instructor. I mean, obviously that's a skill set that everybody would want to have around, but I've got others too. I can run heavy equipment. I can do all kinds of things. There's a great many things that I've got skills in. So being able to have a barterable skill like that is a big deal, So,
I can make cheese.
hey,
Cheese is
if you can make
delicious.
cheese, you can trade it then. There you go. That's a barterable skill. As long as you can come up with the raw materials, it's a barterable trade.
Well, my herd share is like, I just put a gallon of heavy cream with your order. I hope that's okay. I'm like, yes.
Nice.
I'm gonna
There you
make
go.
some awesome cheese out of that. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Skills are going to be a big thing. Learn, and build a survival library. Hit Amazon and start buying some of those old ways books, or how-to books and that kind of thing, and stack them up. Medical books, or there is no doctor, that kind of thing, because you might be the doctor someday. Preppers in particular have this fetish with their IFAKs and their tourniquets and decline and decay. I kind of take that to task and sort of take that whole myth apart. The reason I carry a trauma kit on my rig is not to save my life. Because I know that if I take a high velocity bullet wound in the world that we're looking at, there is no such thing as a higher level of care. Okay, in all probability. So that means you're either going to die from the wound pretty quick, or you're going to die miserably in a few weeks from infection, gangrene, and that kind of thing. The reason I carry an IFAK is to hopefully keep me in the fight long enough to make a difference that the guys I'm with can get the hell out of there. That's it. That's why I carry one. Okay, because if you take a round to the femur that shatters your femur, say it doesn't cut the artery, but it shatters your femur. What are you going to do now? You get your tourniquet on, you get your guy back to the house. Who knows what to do with that tourniquet now? What do you do? How do you start to take a tourniquet off somebody? What's that process even called? Most people don't know. And what are you going to do with them? Do you have the skill set and the tools and the sheer amount of bandaging and material it takes to tend to wounds like that? And it ain't even going to be a rifle. It could be a chainsaw. It could be an axe. There's going to be tons of injuries. Burns are going to be the most common injury because they always are post-disaster. People are cooking over fire. They're doing stuff they're not used to. They get burned. People are working with chainsaws, doing things they're not used to. They get cut. Same with swinging axes. I get out around bushcrafty people and cringe when I watch people swing axes. Get some knowledge and get some skills. I mean, it's check your local library. Great way to go. But get knowledge, guys, because you might find yourself with none of your kit. And what are you gonna do then? Just sit down and die, or as we say, ain't dead, can't quit. I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna find a way. So.
I want to highlight this person. I'm just learning to process animals. Now I feel inadequate for not knowing how to make clothes. No, finish learning how to process animals, and clothes can be next.
Finish learning how to process animals, and then start learning how to process their hides.
That's right.
Clothes.
Yep.
That was the original clothes.
Leather lasts way longer than vegan leather.
Yeah,
like every time I see something advertised as vegan leather, which is vinyl, in my opinion, I'm like, yeah, that's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, and comes up in Margahitosaurus.
And we've had a hog processing demo and class at SRF, and we did a chicken. Joel Salatin did our chicken processing class this last time. So you guys can totally see that, and then you can eat the animal afterwards. You can see it from living thing to consumption, all right on one property here.
Yeah, and that's all because most people have no idea how to process an animal. To them, meat comes in styrofoam trays wrapped in saran wrap from the grocery store. And they're so far removed from the process. So like I've got a good friend, she's an animal lover. And I've got a cow that I'm going to butcher. I can't stand her. Now it's personal, and I told my buddy, I'm like, I'll give you guys some of the beef. And she's like, I don't want any of it. I'm like, why not? She's like, I know its name. I'm like, what the hell does that matter? I'm like, what do you care? But some people have that aversion. They're going to lose that real quick.
Yeah, they are.
But in the early stages of a collapse of the level we're talking about, you will see cattle laying dead in fields with just hunks roughly, crudely cut out of them.
Yep.
Because the person that shot that animal had no idea what to do with it. No idea. So yeah, learning how to dress an animal is going to be critically important.
In addition to the
wasting a lot of meat.
In addition to the guy that owns that animal that they just took a piece out of is gonna kill them as soon as he gets there. It'll be
If
on
he
the
catches
move.
them,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, if he catches them, you know, he's going to kill them. But then but think of the waste. You know, you just killed an animal that could feed, 100 people, and you took enough to feed your family for one day. You know, to feed 4 or 5 or maybe even 10 for a day, and all that rest of that meat's going to lay there and rot because you didn't know how to process it, and nor do you know how to preserve it. You know, that's a lot of meat. That's hundreds of pounds of meat. You better have a plan when you do that, and the plan needs to be ready. It's not like you're going to kill a cow and then be like, we need to build a smokehouse. No, you don't, because it's not going to be able. It's going to be rotted before you can start smoking it. So, you've got to have your stuff together and be ready.
Yep. A lot of salt on hand.
Keep a ton of salt on hand, a good smokehouse, and hey, air drying is still a thing.
Yep.
Screen, I would recommend to get rolls of screen and keep them on hand so that you can build, impromptu drying racks outside to put meat in to air dry. Biltong is a great thing to make, and it's just air dried meat. But if you've got vinegar, you can make traditional biltong the right way, and then it's fantastic and it stores forever. So,
coriander.
Yeah, coriander, coarse ground black pepper, rock salt, coarse salt, kosher salt, and then some vinegar. That's it. That's biltong, and it's so good. And that's what that's Biltong Bessie over there. Her name's Charlotte, but
have you ever heard
Bessie.
of Basturma? It's Basturma. So basically, you take a lean cut of beef, and it's you cut it like 2.5, 3 inches by 3 inches. I used the round roast, and you cover it in salt, like a salt box. Put it in your fridge for 3 days, and you end up with salt liquid. Hang it dry like biltong, and then you make this coating. It's delicious.
Yeah. Well, you can salt cure anything. You can take pork bellies and cover them in coarse salt. Same thing. Put them on a rack inside a pan. Put them in the fridge. Pour the liquid off every now and then. Every day or so until it stops sweating. Take it out. Rinse off the salt, pat it dry, wrap it in a cheesecloth, and hang it from a string from the non-functional light fixture in the kitchen. That's stored meat. That will store. That will last. Cut off what you need and cook it when you need it. So it's not hard. You just got to know how to do it.
Stony Ridge Farms had done a hog process. His family is like straight still in Appalachia. And when they went over and did a hog processing class, I think 2 years ago, they were still pulling meat out of the salt box. And the last of that pig that they had ate was 8 years old at that point, 0 refrigeration.
Yeah, just salt. So vast amounts of salt on hand is a really good thing.
Yep.
So, and not table salt. You can't use Morton's iodized salt for this. You need coarse salt, kosher salt. And you need it in the 50-pound bag quantity, and not just one bag.
And not ice melt either. There's other chemicals in that.
No, not ice melt. You can use Himalayan pink salt, and you can use kosher salt. If there's any other additives into it, you can't use it. So
now I got to look at the ingredients list on my water softener salt because I'm curious. Because I assume that's straight up sodium.
Find out, won't you?
I'm totally gonna do that. That's. I keep lots of those bags around so that my hot water heater doesn't melt down.
Well, so think about it. If that is just pure sodium in your water softener, think of how cheap that salt is to buy the 50-pound bag, and how easy that is to throw in the garage or the shed or whatever in the store. Nothing's going to eat it. So
if I don't have power, I don't need salt water.
Well, ideally, you're going to buy that stuff in bulk quantities right now, and if you're moving anything with pallet forks and a skid steer, everything is bulk quantity, so it's a lot cheaper. So you have the ability to get 4 people together and go, hey, I'm buying these things. And if you add in human labor and we don't have to move those bags and we can palletize and stack at the end, you're going to use human labor, but we sure didn't in the beginning, and we got it for a greatly reduced price because of that. Like, you want to buy enough that they put it on your truck and your machine unloads that truck, because what is your hours worth? And if you're when you're like, well, I'll just do it, then you're not making enough money. You need to figure out for how your time is more valuable.
Yep. Because you're always going to have tasks to do in that, There's always going to be work to do.
Yep.
And you're going to have more work than you have hours.
Yep.
You have more work than you have hands.
And you have to look at preservation, man. Like I'm 52 years old. I do not heal how I used to. So I don't jump down out of trucks with 44-inch tires anymore. Like I actually have to be cognizant of that, right? When I was T-posting and cut the top of my head open, had to get 15 staples in a very slightly different situation. That could have been the end of it, you know? So you have to be cognizant of those things. And then, force multipliers. I used to have 8 guys. We would stack up hundreds of rail ties and it would take an entire day. And now I can do that on a Sunday with a mini X and a thumb while I listen to your book.
Yep. Economy of labor for sure. Machines are awesome. And when we've got them, use them, which is another thing. Everybody is too focused on EMP. I really think that's pretty low threat level to us at this point. Although those container launched ones are a bit of a problem because one was just used by was it Iran? Somebody just used a container launched rocket and rocket system anyway. But have the stuff that isn't necessarily EMP, like your ham radios and stuff like that. Have those things and use them now, and get proficient with them. Get a tablet, download the offline Wikipedia, download ebooks for how-tos and stuff like that. If you're worried about it, throw it in a Faraday cage. You can make a Faraday cage out of a galvanized garbage can and steel wool. Line it with something non-conductive. Use the steel wool to make a gasket. Put the lid on. And I had that tested in the same lab that goes around to federal facilities looking for RF leaks. And they test the federal Faraday equipment. And they said it exceeded what the federal government uses as far as efficiency as a Faraday cage. So, and you can buy that at Ace Hardware,
You can also get encyclopedia sets on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, download, and I know Wikipedia's, anybody can modify it, but you can download the offline version onto a tablet. And have
their article on how botulism works is very accurate.
Yeah.
Because so it's just because somebody can modify it doesn't mean that there isn't useful information there.
Well, not the only things you got to worry about are these idiots that want to do it for political purpose or whatever. That's the stuff you got to worry about. So,
but that's not what you're using in a survival situation.
No, you're not. You're not gonna be worried about none of that stuff.
I want you to have all of it, right? The guy wants to have what should I buy? If he's asking that, he's already bought it and he has an emotional investment into it, right? But the answer is, man, we've been doing this for so long. If you're hearing, I'm 52, something was supposed to wipe us out since Nostradamus, since Red Dawn. Yeah. I was carrying an M1 carbine around in the Blazer in the 8th grade because of Red Dawn, right? And
I had one.
and we're really good about operating out of fear and emotion. And when you do that and you operate on negativity, man, you cannot rest and you cannot process. If I could have gotten everybody 20 years ago to just take and start a business and then develop money and put that onto a piece of property, you would be in such a better place right now. And as crazy as things are, it's still not too late, right? You're just behind the rest of us, but you're also in a place right now where you can be in a much better place in 2 years or 5 years. Even during the Civil War, how many people actually fought in the Civil War that were in the United States? How many millionaires were made during the Great Depression, right? Identify an issue, create a solution, and then market that solution. Like, you still can do these things. We can operate under the genre of prepper, but you can also be a millionaire and a prepper. And when you have a little bit of money, it makes prepping a lot easier. When you're
it does.
Yeah, and when you're building stuff out of old wood, it rots down. When you build shit out of proper concrete, it is going to still be there. Like you have some advantages if you just have a little bit of money.
Yeah, and the time,
So this question here is which fireside books, and you're not going to get that from me. What you're going to get is if you want to buy one book for $15 to $40, depending on if you get a digital book about how to do everything. This book, The Encyclopedia of Country Living by Carla Emery, who is dead, will show you how to cook a rattlesnake and prepare it. It'll show you how to process animals, deliver a child, treat illnesses with some herbal remedies, can and preserve foods and all of, dry foods, all sorts of grow food, how to plan your garden. Like this thing, if I could only have one book in my whole life, it would be this book as far as a reference after when I can't reach anything else.
And there should be a drop down in that menu on Amazon to where you can get a spiral bound version of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, not
So-
yet. Yeah, that and then Back to Basics is another one. I would add
Yep.
those two together, and that's pretty solid.
5 Acres in Independence. That's a good one
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Yep.
The Foxfire books are great, but there's so much information in there that is going to be utterly useless, like dancing and snake handling and shit like that. You're not going to care about none of that stuff.
Come on now, snake. You might need some snake handling in church. I have yet to be invited to the snake handling church.
Well,
me neither.
I can get you invited if you want, John. You just have to drive.
I'll pass on the handling of serpents. I mean, I'm not afraid of snakes. They don't bother me in the least bit. But I
want to view it.
I don't go looking for it.
I just want to see it.
Oh yeah, nah, I'm good. That's all right.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry to derailed you there, but we have the other question is this one. What's everybody's favorite personal water container or filter? And I'm going to ask you, what do you have right now?
Me?
Anybody. Like you should ask yourself, what do I have right now? That's my favorite one.
Yeah. Well, it's like your favorite gun. It's the one I got. But yeah, water containers, like I said earlier, something people underestimate. And I don't mean the little collapsible things that you can buy or even stainless steel water bottles. You need to be thinking jerry cans, 5 gallons, like jerry cans for carrying water. And then for filters, we run a big Berkey here. We've got the Royal Berkey. We run that, and I keep Life Straws, not Life Straws, Sawyer Minis, which I'm not a fan of. I like cutting those into hydration systems. I'm not going to use that because to use it from a water source, I got to put my face down on the water source and drink through it like a straw. And if I'm doing that, I got no security unless I got somebody with me. Different call. But I like pump filters for that reason. I can keep my head up and be filtering my water while I'm looking around. And then lots of containers. I can't stress that enough. I think too many people don't run canteens on their kit anymore. I highly stress canteens because hydration bladders blow out. I've blown mine out before, lost all my water, because you think about it, well, it's in my backpack. Nothing's ever going to happen there. Well, you can find yourselves in situations where you may be on your back on that thing and rolling around or crawling around or doing stuff you never dreamed of, and you'll blow that bladder apart. And canteens don't break. I mean, not as hard, not as easy to break. They're thick plastic. I also do like the clean canteen stainless bottles because I can set that on a fire and boil the water in there and then cap that thing and take off if I need to. So a metal container is a must for sure. But get back to good old GI canteens, man. They're worth their weight in gold.
We had this.
And someone had mentioned the Grail filter. I love Grails. I keep a Grail in my truck. I've got a Grail in my ruck along with a pump. So it's not only is the Grail a filter, it's also a container, but I also have a water pump or filter pump in there too, because those things are fantastic.
So MSR, Catadine, we've got all of that stuff, multiples of them. We have an Imperial Bilker. We have an Imperial Berkey. It's the 6 gallon that all the water here comes out of. The more water you store, the more gallons you store per container, the less it costs to store per container. We have 3 million gallons in a pond in the back that all of the downspouts off the roof trench to. The pond in the middle is probably sitting about 700,000 gallons when it's full. Roof catchment off of everything. We've got 1,500 gallon tanks and 1,000 gallon tanks that are full. Those fill up and overflow into the middle pond. The middle pond overflows and terminates into the bottom pond on the property. IBC totes. I've probably got about a dozen IBC totes full of water. We've got probably 20 55-gallon drums full of water. And I think I have 250 gallons of water in 5-gallon and 7-gallon water cubes in the hallway downstairs by the employee bathrooms. So, I mean, we're sitting on water. We have water.
Yeah. I was doing water
pretty full too.
What's that?
Your pond is full too.
Oh.
Yeah, always.
Well, I was doing water in the blue 15-gallon drums because that's man portable.
Yep.
That's man portable. One guy can move that. And so I was doing water in those, and I did fuel in some too, because again, I can pick that up by myself and get it in my truck or get it into something if I need to. I can move it myself. 55-gallon drum, at the very minimum, I need a hand truck. And if I need to load it into a truck, I need a machine,
And your
or
wife's
a
not
bunch of
moving it.
dudes.
Yeah, your wife's not
Yeah,
moving it up and down stairs. There's the water containers and the fuel containers are made with 3 handles on purpose. That's so that you can hold one and a second. Your teammate can hold the other half of one and a third, and 2 guys can move 3 of those things.
Yep.
We buy the 5-gallon Euro cans on a pallet. There's 88 cans on a pallet, and you can get those NATO cans for water. But for water, we use the U.S. military ones, the tan ones. I can fill that up, and I can drive over it with a Super Duty truck, and it does not collapse it. It's made of the same thing that canteens are.
You could be on a high speed, resupply where someone rolls up in a pickup truck and there's a guy standing back there just chucking 5-gallon jerry cans out of the truck as fast as he can go. They're going to hit the ground, and you're going to be able to drive away, and those guys are going to have water. Try that with milk jugs.
I'll bet you could drop those out of an aircraft, and I'll bet you half of them would survive contact with the earth.
Yeah, depending on your altitude, more than likely. Yeah, because they're tough. I mean, we use them in the field. I mean, greatly. Moving water around, and it sucks, again, because that's what I was talking about earlier, how difficult liquids are. It sucks if you've got to move, 25-gallon jerry cans of water to a new location. That's a job, and people just forget about it. We're not used to manual labor. We've taken all the work out of work in this country. Like you were saying earlier, how many people just do stuff on the internet? They don't get out and actually do anything. And there's going to be some rude awakenings for people. I have a feeling in our very near future. I'm not trying to be a doomsday kind of guy, because I'm not. I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I would much rather be sitting on the beach drinking something with a little umbrella in it and looking at pretty women in bikinis than what we're looking at doing. So that's easy to do. That's a lot harder to do. And so I'm going to get ready for the hard one, but I still go to the beach every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go to the beach.
I mean, the beach is nice.
I like the beach. I like to surf fish. I do, and that's another thing I stress to people all the time is take the time now to live. It's like you were saying earlier, these are the good years, guys. Take the time to live. If you're looking at, you haven't taken the family on a vacation in 10 years because you're putting all your money into preps, you're living wrong. You've got to take them and let them live and experience in life, because at some point you're going to be in such a dark place and in such a bad time that you're going to need that memory to think back to of what it was and why you're doing what you're doing, because you want that back. And you're going to need those memories. You're going to really need that to rely on and something to remember a good time, what we can get back to and why we're going through what we're going through at that moment. So don't forget to live for today.
What was the movie where when they looked out the window, like the forest was on fire and his wife just went out of the cabin and just walked out into the woods and that was the end of her? I think it was The Road or something. Do you want that girl or you want the doomsday bitch? I'm going to take the doomsday bitch.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I want a bunker dwelling doomsday bitch. That's the one I'm looking for.
Yeah.
My wife, her favorite gun is her 45-70. She
awesome.
Carries a pistol every day. She carries a Maxpedition Versapack that's got 3 tourniquets in it, chest seals, and she don't carry a purse. She's carrying a CLS bag essentially with pistols in it and spare mags. So stay ready. You ain't got to get ready. I think we covered that earlier. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny to a lot of people. I get up in the morning when I get dressed. I first thing I do is I put my gun on, and then I do a couple of quick draw, strokes. Good there. My tourniquet goes in my pocket. My flashlight goes in my pocket. My pocket knife goes in my pocket. Then wallet and keys. That's my basic daily thing. Plus, I've got a Right in the Rain zippered thing that goes in a pocket with some other shit in there. That's my basic. If I'm just walking on my property, if I'm just home, that's it. I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. That's what I have on me. If I'm going to go from going anywhere, I got another bag I'll grab, throw in my truck with some extra stuff. But I've got a dead hooker bag in the bed of my truck that's got all the plates, armor, pistol belts. Sidearms are in it. Long guns are in a deck system. Ammo's there. Other stuff's there. The optics are ready to move. Night vision, thermal, all the goodies. There's ammo in my truck. My bug out bag is in my truck. My wife's bug out bag is in my truck. there's jerry cans of water, there's additional food, there's additional shelter, there's additional tools. So, your vehicle is always your closest resupply point. If I found myself in a position where I'm going to have to abandon my truck and I know I'm not going to be able to come back in that thing, I'm going to take everything that I want and can from it. And then I very specifically keep a German flare in the console of my truck. And as I walk away, I'm throwing that into the cabin because I'm not leaving none of that shit for anybody to come behind me, to potentially use it on me. So that'd be a spectacular fire. Or a breech pen, I light a breech pen and throw it in there too. Those are a lot of fun. But so.
And if you're storing in an open bed of a truck, don't forget that body bags are waterproof and you can put things in them that are not body.
I was just recently on the side of the road. It was a animal that had been hit, and it was standing there. It was a dog, and it was standing there with some people, and they were talking about what to do with the dog. And I said, well, you call animal control and look and get it. And then this one guy was like, well, it's my dog. And then it was really messed up. And I was like, oh, I got a body bag. You can put it in the body bag. And everybody looked at it, they're like, you have a body bag? Like, why do you keep a body bag in your truck? And I was like, you don't? And they all just looked at me like, what the hell? I'm like, it works as a stretcher too. Yeah. That's why I carry it. It's dual purpose. It's a expedient litter if I need one. It's got 6 handles on it. We can move a person. They don't have to be in it. They can be laying on it. But yeah, get body bags. You can buy them on Amazon, guys. They're not expensive. I recommend it.
We have a 4Runner with so much gear in the back that there's never been passengers. People are like, can I ride with you? I'm like, no, where are you going to put all your gear? Hell no, you can't ride with us.
That's like me if I'm going to go on a road trip, I have to go into the bed of my truck and completely reorganize it because I've got a North American rescue bag, the big one with the collapsible litter that lives in the bed of my truck. My ruck lives in the bed of my truck, and it's a large ruck because it's just seasonal and depending on what I'm doing. Then my wife's ruck's back there. Then I got a CLS bag back there. Then I got jerry cans of water. I've got shovels and other tools. I've got ammo cans. I've got tons of stuff back there. So the bed of my truck has a topper on it and a deck system in it, and it's usually full.
That's what I was going to say for whoever said open truck, man. Get the deck system. They've just revamped it. They've got Mark II out. Yeah. It's got a ton more cargo capacity. It's a good system, and you can get into them for like $1,200, man.
Yeah, and the deck system is fantastic, man. I love mine. So it changed my truck.
What kind of truck are you?
In it.
What are you running?
I'm still running my 2015 F250. Cool. I bought a Black Ops edition by Tuscany, and so it had some suspension mods and some other stuff done to it, and it was a nice looking truck, blacked out, which is what caught my eye. And I got a screaming deal on it. We just happened to be on vacation, and we were up in Elizabethton, Tennessee, and this truck was sitting on our lot, and I had never even seen anything like that before. And Mel talked me into going back and looking at it, and I just walked around and looked at the windshield. And it was in 2015, the truck was $85,000. And I just laughed. And from over my shoulder, I heard, I'll take $10,000 off of it right now if you'll buy it. And I turned around and looked at the guy, and he's like, we got to get this thing off our lot, dude. It's killing our inventory. And I said, let's go in your office and talk for real. And I got the truck that day for like $65,800. They came 20 G's off of it to move it. And it's been a fantastic truck. I've just had to replace the front main seal on it, and I had to have the AC evaporator replaced in it once. But that's the sole maintenance. I run Ames oil in my trucks. It's the only thing I run in them. Always have. And I've got 230-odd thousand miles on that F250, and it just keeps rolling.
Awesome.
So I like my F250s. And it's not that I think Chevy I'm not one of those dudes, everybody hates on Ford or GMC or whatever. I'm not that guy. It's been a good truck. It's been a great truck. I got no complaints. So I'm going to stick with them. They're good to me.
Yeah, I have everything. Literally, I have all of them right now, currently.
Yeah.
All of them.
Including Porsches.
Well, we've got 2 F250s. My wife drives one. I've got an 04 that I bought from a buddy of mine just because it had been bulletproof. It had the 6.0, but it was bulletproof, and it is probably the fastest pickup truck I've ever sat down in. And so that's hers, and then I've got mine. And this year we might buy a new one. and then she'll take she wants my truck real bad because she loves driving it because, you know, she's like 5'4", and when she climbs out of that big ass black F-250 with her blonde hair and everything, everybody looks at her. So she wants that truck real bad. So
what are you doing with that big old truck? Yep, my wife got the same thing. Yeah,
she gets a lot of everybody, they see her get out of it, like, what, you know?
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Yeah. Well, and you know, too, so the choice of vehicle is a big deal. You know, driving something that will allow you to get out of traffic. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's stuck, or if you can see that there's a riot coming down the road and they're jumping on people's cars and kicking in windshields and dragging people out. I want a vehicle that I can push shit out of my way with, and I will push your car out of my way to do what I need to do, and I can run over about anything I need to. You know, that's why I drive a big truck. You know, with that kind of power. You know, so everything I think this way on everything I do. From the clothes I buy. You know, my wife gives me crap that I wear a uniform. You know, because it's basically the same thing every day, pretty much. Maybe different colors, but it's the exact same stuff because I've pressure tested this clothing. I know it will perform and hold up for me. It's been with me in some bad places and it's never let me down. So, you know, it's a holistic way of thinking. And I think if people approach it that way and you start viewing things through that lens of how good is this? Because we live in a disposable society, like I said earlier, but quality matters, man, you know, especially in clothing. I can't stress that enough. Companies like Duluth Trading and Carhartt, you know, look at these places. They make clothes that don't wear out. I've got Carhartts hanging in my closet that I've had for over 30 years. And
also buy men's.
Yeah.
Men's. I buy men's shoes, and because I buy from Duluth women's too, because they fit better, but they fall apart compared to men's.
Yeah.
So and that is something as a woman homesteader is super frustrating to me.
When you have the uniform too, right? It's always the same shoes, same socks, same pants. I just change a t-shirt every day, and it's always one of the t-shirts that we ran this week. So it's Cole pants, it's Solomon shoes, it's Smart Wool socks, and I have 20 pairs of the exact same thing. So same Katanica, it's always Katanica shorts when it's warm, but the footwear's the same. I've got the knife, I've got the other multi-tool, I've got the flashlight. They're all in the same pockets.
My Weatherman. Forgot about my Weatherman. Yeah.
I get dressed in the dark, and all my shit's with me. Right. There's a tourniquet in the other pocket always.
Yep. Same thing. I wear 5'11" pants because I found a cut that they do that I really like. It's not they used to call it a work pant. I think they changed the name of it now, but it doesn't have the big billowy cargo pockets on it. They're slim and tight to the body. But the pockets are right for me. They carry the things I need to carry. I only wear button-up shirts. You hardly ever see me in a t-shirt. It's not my thing. And I shouldn't say button-up. 99% of the time, it's snap shirts. Why? I want to be able to clear my gun. That's why. So I want to be able to rip my shirt open if I have to get my weapon if I'm seated or something like that. But it's the same thing. Solomon shoes, darn tough socks usually. And then 5'11", true spec, whatever shirts that are designed for carry that I can rip open. And there's other companies out there making them now too, but something that's quality, and it'll last. And like you look at my closet, it's I like cool. Is like you said, they make great clothing too. That's fantastic. I've got that hanging in my closet. I've got some Fjall Raven stuff hanging in there. I've got a lot of 5'11" hanging in there. Yeah. Fjall Raven makes great stuff.
Yeah. That's what our canine guy uses. Joel Riles. That's all he wears. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, Joel's a great dude. He's. I was just about to take a Malinois from somebody. It was 9 months old. Had all the obedience training. It was a very well trained dog, but I just don't think we can dedicate the time. We've got so much travel coming up. Like I'm booked through May right now. We're leaving next week, and I'm pretty much on the road through most of the time through May. So.
Well, you just have to travel with your missile system. I mean, it goes everywhere you go.
Yeah, I know. And it's, and we have a camper and all, but again, getting the time to work with him and having to get, and plus Joel's moving to Ohio now. Yep. And I wanted Joe to do the bite work on the dog. And, he lives real close to me right now. And
that's Bob.
Now he's going up to Ohio.
That's Bob's fault. He's in here.
I was told, I saw him in there and he said, he told me yesterday that Joel's moving up and I was like, well, shit. I was like, well, good thing I passed on that.
I hadn't heard that it was conclusive, but I'm excited because that's closer to us.
Yeah, I think it looks like that's going to be a thing. They're heading north. So,
Yep.
No offense, Bob, but Ohio is a great state to be from, in my opinion. So,
Yep.
that's where my wife was born. So I tease her with it all the time. I'm like, Ohio's a great place to be from. So,
Yeah, if you wear a uniform, this is not a terribly girly thing to say, but I don't care. You don't have to spend time thinking about what to wear, and then you have more time to do things.
Yeah, and
I totally wear a uniform.
A stranger on the street doesn't know I'm wearing a uniform. He sees a really dark brown, they're called coffee or espresso, a really dark brown pair of pants, a shirt, and when I need to dress up, I put a long sleeve Smart Wool or Cole shirt that has some outside stitching. So when I'm sitting at a $200 a plate steakhouse, nobody's looking, right? I just put a watch on, and that's the end of it. They don't even think twice.
Yeah, if I'm going to dress up, it's usually 5'11" jeans.
Yep.
And then a shirt, nicer shoes. I won't wear my Solomons. I'll put something nicer on, and that's me dressed up. I'm a pretty basic dude. To me, form over function. I mean, function over form. It needs to function properly, and function over fashion every day. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a burning question from Rachel. What's your pick on socks for the cold? For me, it's merino wool of any kind, and
merino
shoes matter more.
Wool for sure, always wool. But I'm gonna get into I'm getting ready to order some of the buffalo wool socks that have hit the market. And I'm hearing really good things about that. So that now they're carding out buffalo, I guess, and spinning that up and making a wool out of it. And I want to try those. But wool for sure. In the field, if I'm in the field operating, even my underwear is merino wool. My socks will be merino wool. My t-shirts, if I'm wearing one, it will be a merino wool shirt. I don't wear cotton in the field at all if I can avoid it. Cotton kills. It's not something I do. But wool, that's different. It'll help keep the stink down on you too, because that's just comes with life when you're out there operating that way. Merino wool's antimicrobial. It doesn't encourage growth of bacteria and stuff. So you'll feel a little bit better over the long haul wearing some wool.
They dry faster too. You can rotate them out. You can put them on your pack. You can get them dried out. I use Covert Threads. I use Smart Wool and Darn Tough. Out of the three, I feel like the Smart Wool holds its loft better and it dries quicker. I don't get as wet as I do when I've tried, man. I know guys at Darn Tough, and I have a bunch of the socks, but they just don't keep the cushion as long. And since you said cold weather also, you're going to wear a much thicker sock, which means you're probably going to go a half size boot or shoe larger. And it's just like buying jackets, right? When you buy a hard shell, if your hard shell is going over your soft shell, I wear a medium shirt. I want a large cover, but if I'm wearing more layer, then I need an extra large. So when my wife and I bought cold weather gear last year, we were looking at, okay, if we're on the 4-wheelers, if we're on the razors, we bought multiple layers, and all the hard outer shells we got in medium and large and extra large because of the layers you're going to be running with them. You have to have multiple sizes.
And the brand for merino wool or any of these will change based on your foot shape and size. So I don't wear Darn Tough because my feet are so dang wide that the socks don't fit. And I've tried everything. And so I went to another brand that worked and it was fine. And it's nothing against them. Their quality of sock is great for a skinnier foot, but I have big, wide German high arched feet, and that is what it is.
Yeah. I like Smart Wool too. I run a lot of theirs.
You're just going to have to get that pinky toe removed.
Well, just the whole side of my
foot. Pinky toe removed. I'm going to shoot off your pinky toe.
Please shot me in the pinky toe.
Chuck, I'm going to need you. That's our
Gorman. That's it. Let me see. Jose says, I live near you and 20 minutes away from children. Okay.
Yeah,
I know that guy. I'll co-sign that guy if you want to meet up with him ever.
Speaking of which, Jose has a question. What boots do you recommend? That's from earlier when we were talking about boots.
Oh man, boots are tough. Boots are tough. I wear a lot of Solomon stuff right now. I used to be a big Merrell fan, and Merrell actually made a tactical boot for a while that for me was the best boot I'd ever put on. It had a couple limitations, but but for operating in the field, they were fantastic. They were Gore-Tex and they were super light, and I loved them. But they stopped making them, and the last pair of them that I have, which I still have, they're pretty rough. Fire's not too kind to boots. I got to walk through a fire one time in them, and so they're pretty rough. And I'm actually in the market for boots right now, but I'm looking at some Solomon and other stuff. I don't like boots from like 5'11". I don't like what they produce. I'm pretty picky. I'm actually
those are shoes that look like boots.
Yeah, I'm not into that. I'm into, and it again depends on where you're operating. Like down here in Florida, we don't have gravel and rock, so I don't need a hard sole boot. I don't need a boot with a really hard sole that will prevent me from feeling that. Now, if I wear my Merrells up in the mountains, in Georgia and Tennessee and stuff, I feel every rock I step on. That can also be an advantage too, though. So it depends. And Danners, is one that I do like. I've got some Danners now, and I'm looking at some Danners also. But there's also some other companies out there. When people think tactical boots, that's what they think as tactical companies. Well, think mountaineering boots, because those things are made to last. Better choice. And in SF circles, it's interesting when you get out with those dudes and you look down at their feet, everybody's wearing something different. It's such a personal thing to everybody. So I'll talk to guys about the boots. Like, what do you think of those, and what made you pick them? And because it's a big deal, and you need to have several pairs of boots. One pair ain't going to cut it. Two pair ain't going to cut it.
I've got multiple pairs of 8-inch Acadias, which are Danners. I've got Matterhorns, which were copies when the Marine Corps issued a second contract to Danner they couldn't fulfill, and that released the Marine Corps to go to other companies. Bates made they made some shitty boots, but they also made some good copies of the Danners. I wear GTXs. If I'm going to wear a lace-up Solomon, it's going to be GTXs. And if I'm wearing if I'm going to do a heavy load or I'm riding a dual sport without a real boot on, I'm going to go with a Solos. A Solo has a great rigid sole, and your pegs are not going to eat the shit out of them. And if you're moving weight, you need a different boot.
Yep. And that's just it. If you're moving weight, it's so hard to tell if you're going to be putting a ruck. And people forget about total weights. Oh, my ruck weight's this, my ruck weight's that. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, do you have a pistol belt? Yeah. What's that weigh? I don't know. Okay. You got a chest rig you're wearing too? No, I got a plate carrier. No. What's that weigh? I don't know. I'm like, have you ever put all that shit on before?
No, they haven't.
Somewhere other than the living room? Somewhere other than the living room? Have you put it on and lived with it?
In the mirror. Yeah. Have you ever have your wife drop you off in Nashville and go ahead and make that 100-mile movement?
Just take a weekend and go live it. Take a weekend, get your ruck, get your full loadout, because we all hear I'm just going to run to the woods and I'll hunt and feed my family. The woods are going to look like the Oregon Trail back in the day. There's going to be discarded kit laying everywhere because people are going to sit down and I'm throwing that shit away and I ain't carrying this no more. And there's going to be kit laying everywhere.
It's not that easy to hunt after everybody has hunted either.
Well,
there's a point after the Civil War, part of why turkeys almost went extinct was people were shooting them and eating them, and deer too.
In the early 1900s, white-tailed deer were nearly extirpated from the eastern United States. I cover this in Decline and Decay. So our population back then was a fraction of what it is now. But white-tailed deer hardly existed east of the Mississippi River. Like, seeing one was a notable thing you talked about. And the only reason we have game in this country is because we want to, and we, in particular, the people that hunt them, support the conservation of them, and that's why we have them. So you're right. When the gloves come off and it's everybody for himself, game will cease to exist. I mean, you won't see animals. It'll take a little bit, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it won't take long. It won't take long at all. And there won't be any game. You won't see animals. You just will not see them.
Yeah. Somebody said if you've ever gone hunting a few days after opening, you know what you're talking about. Well, yeah, because they also start snapping to what's going on. Animals learn. They have their spidey sense too.
Yeah. Well, but see, it'll change their patterns entirely because so many people will start night hunting because that's easier to do. And so the animals' patterns are going to have to change too, and it'll force them to move during the daylight when they're going to be getting shot at. So, being a deer is going to be a rough life whenever the balloon goes up, because they're going to feel like German soldiers in Stalingrad every time they move. Someone takes a shot at them, So.
Yep. All right. This is one totally out of left field. What do you do to keep algae and such from growing in IBC totes? I know what I do. I don't let light touch them.
Yeah, paint them black for sure. Get them out of the light. Don't let light on them. That's the number one thing.
Hydrogen peroxide will knock back. Bleach will knock it back. I think that lactobacillus will also help knock that back. But
why do we care if there's algae?
Yeah, it don't really matter. You can drink it anyway.
I mean, I've drank out of an aquarium as a kid because I was too lazy to go out of my bedroom to go downstairs to get water. I drank out of an aquarium as a child all the time, and it was full of algae. Yeah. My IBC totes, we did not black them out. Yes, there's algae in them. The fish do awesome. The plants grow great. But water, for the most part, is free when it comes out of a faucet. If you're putting it in IBC totes, that's not an open system. I have IBC totes. We put city water in that stuff 3 years ago. There is still no algae as long as your cap is on that thing.
Yep.
That'll work. Bob, I'm looking for a hard sole flip flop. Bob,
that's the Croc King right there.
They're called clogs, Bob.
There actually is a company out of Africa that was using rubber tire soles. And REI had them for a while. I don't know. Tiva had some super hard stuff like that too. I don't wear any of that stuff.
Yeah, my mom came back from Japan with some wooden sandals. It was just wooden with about that much of a platform, 3 inches.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no on that also.
Yeah, me too. No.
That's
Ho Chi Minh sandals in a pinch. Yeah, make it out of a tire. I know Alan Kay chased some kind of I can't remember what antelope it was, but it's the biggest of the antelopes in Africa. This thing was huge. He chased that across the damn woods out there in a pair of Ho Chi Minh sandals with a kukri, and he killed it with it. So
that's awesome.
He was with the Sand Bushmen, and they're barefoot and running, and he's in a pair of Ho Chi Minh sandals running right with them. So
that's cool.
All right. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, which is usually when we wrap up.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure we could talk to you for 5 hours and keep going.
Oh, we could do this all day. Yeah, we can keep going.
We might need to send you a bottle of whiskey if we're going to do that, though.
I got some around here.
So I think I'm on your live. I don't know if you even know that. I'm on your live tomorrow. Yeah.
Yep. It'll be me and you. I'll be. Actually, I'm going to do it from right here. I got 2 different sets in here, and I was just thinking, but I'm going to do it from right here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We'll have a nice chat tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go around. We usually go around the horn, just sort of promoting your stuff. And I thought this would be the perfect question to end on for you. When is book 13 coming out?
I got asked that question a day after book 12 was released. and it's coming. You'll get it this year. That's all I got to say. You'll get it this year.
I went through the last one in 2 days.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they're not super big. I mean, the last one was a little bit bigger.
Well, they're bigger. They're bigger than some.
Yeah, well, off channel. I know. Let's talk about that. Let's because I know exactly what you're talking about. But I tell folks, I said, there's no prize at the end of the book. This ain't a box of cereal, y'all. You don't get a prize for finishing it that quick. But I'm trying to get them a little bit longer because Penguin was the one that came in and said they didn't want them no more than about 90,000 words. And so I kind of was just stuck in it for a while. And then I was like, why am I still doing this? So the last one went quite well past that. But I want to try to get them back up to like where Going Home was and Surviving Home, where they're a little bit better read, more meat on the bone. And book 13 will be a good one. That one's going to be kind of mashed, pedal to the floor from the start to the end of the book. Where you guys thought you hate the previous cliffhangers, you're going to really hate that one.
Can we get you to commit right here to at least, I don't know, 25, maybe 30?
Oh, books in the series?
Yeah.
Well, what I've always said about it is because people always ask me how many am I going to write, and I was like, well, how many do y'all want? And they're like, we never want at the end. And I was like, all right, well, here's the deal then. I said, I'll write them as long as I'm enjoying writing them and you guys enjoy reading them. And recently I started saying maybe we'd cap it at 20, but we'll see. I mean, if it's still there and everybody's still dying for it, then we'll just keep it going, you know.
We talk about them on the lives, man. When I go, hey, I'm listening to this, and they'll start, and the conversation will come up all through the lives that we do.
I'm
as
sure.
we go. Like I have an alpaca stove sitting in here just from the first book. And I'm like, I meant to buy that years ago and I never bought one, and bought it that night and it showed up and I've got it because of that.
Have you used it yet, John?
No, I've used one. I have not used that one. I've not used the brand new one.
And, I never, ever imagined the impact that this stuff would have. I've had people call me and, hey, we sold our place in California, this and that, and we moved to Missouri and we bought a 20-acre homestead and we're homeschooling our kids now. And they're like, and our life has never been better. We didn't understand the life we were living and what it was doing to us until we got here. And I get a lot of messages like that. And it's amazing to know that, something you conjured up out of your mind had that sort of impact on people. And it's humbling, it's also, and some of the things that happen, I have spoke to 3 people literally at their request on their deathbed. They were dying. Like this was the end. They knew it. And they wanted to talk to me of all the fucking people in the world.
Yep.
And I always do that, of course, but I'm there to make them laugh. That's what I want to get them doing. We don't talk about why they're there or what, none of that. First thing I start, I come in, but stop being lazy, get up, I just start picking at them and get them laughing and stuff like that. And of course, answer any questions they have, but it's a humbling thing to know that, because this all happens by accident. Other people come to me and ask for advice on writing, and I'm like, don't look at me as an example. I said, what happened to me was like getting struck by lightning. It was just, everything was the exact right moment, right time, right. Everything was right for that instant. And I literally remember the night I did it. I remember the night I started writing. Everybody's in bed and I'm sitting in my living room by myself. I remember it clear as day. But it's amazing what it's done and the impact it's had on people, because we're 1.5 million, I think, odd copies sold at this point. We've sold a lot of books, and the TV development is still in progress. That's still a work that's going on. I was just on a call yesterday with some guys about it. I had a call with my entertainment lawyer about it, and we're moving. There's some things that'll hopefully start happening here soon. So
awesome.
I would love to get it made.
All right, guys. So if you haven't figured it out, you can go to angryamerican.com to find out all about him and his. It will take you to all the places. And spell it Angery American,
That's
which
right.
I totally did wrong at the beginning. I had to learn that the hard. I was like, the email bounced. Why'd the email bounce? Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
So,
Bob's been calling me for days. He's like, hey, have you gotten that email? I'm like, no. He's like, well, I sent it. I'm like, check your spelling. You spelled it wrong. And last night he's like, I did. And then I looked this morning. I'm like, all right, I got it now. I haven't told him yet, but I do have your email now, Bob.
Bob, he's got your email, so we're good to go. And he will be at Self-Reliance Festival April 6th and 7th. Speaking on, we're calling your session right now Practical Preparedness, but you can give me any title you want.
That's fine. That's good.
The thing I love about you is that you are situationally aware, but practical with your solutions, things that people actionable and can do. So it's not like spend $20,000 after, mortgaging your house to where you can't pay it to do this thing. It's do what you can do one step at a time. So
what I tell people is every step you take on the journey of preparedness, every step you take puts you one step ahead of everybody else. Every step you take puts you that much farther ahead of the people that are doing nothing. So that old adage of when was the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. When's the next best day? Today. So start today, whatever that looks like for you, a can of beans, a bag of rice, a box of 9mm rounds, whatever that you put away and say, this is my break glass in case of, oh shit. And that's what this stuff is for. And we don't touch it.
And it accumulates. It's all accumulative, man. Little bit.
It does build up. It does build up over time. It just takes a minute, but it'll get there.
Yep.
Got to Johnny Cash it. Yep. Build it. Yep. One piece at a time. That's how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. This is the same thing,
Yeah.
So and you know, and don't live in fear. You approach this from a positive and practical standpoint. You've got car insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, you know, health insurance, all this insurance. This is life assurance. This is quality of life insurance to ensure that you can maintain a decent quality of life in adverse conditions for you and yours. That's all you're doing, you know.
Yep.
And that's, you know, and in my world, in my way of thinking, that's a man's job. No offense, it's the women's jobs too, but you know, that's a man's job is to provide, and women are the providers too. So when I say that, I'm speaking for both of us, but it's your job to do that. Even if it's just yourself, you got to take care of yourself. If you've got a family, you've got to take care of them. And when both partners are on the same page and they're working together towards the same goal, it's fabulous, and you can get so much more done. Yep. But you know, look at it as a family hobby. Whatever it takes, just get going, and don't do it out of fear. Do it out of practicality. So
awesome. John, what do you got for us before we sign off?
SOE Tactical Gear is the company, Special Operations Equipment. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm everywhere, literally. I do a live every single night at 9 o'clock, every single day of the year, forever. If you want to interact, that can be lifestyle design, it can be business, it can be nylon tactical gear, it can be sewing, it can be prepping, it can be anything you guys want to talk about. Those conversations are led by the comments that you put in there. And I literally run almost 2 hours every single night. I do 2 podcasts a week. I've got 5,000 videos here on YouTube. So you can reach us. Self-Reliance Festival is happening here at the compound at Special Operations Equipment. Come out for that. You're not going to believe this, but it's selfreliancefestival.com. And in Homestead Apprentice, the program we're running is homesteadapprentice.com. If you think you'd like to be a part of that, all of the information is right there. We would love to see you guys. I will see you guys tonight at 9 o'clock. If you ever want to meet all of us, Self-Reliance Festival is the place to do that.
Hell yeah.
All right. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, which documents my journey from deciding to take ownership for my life. And hopefully by sharing that, I can help you take ownership for your life and build the life you want to live, not the one somebody else told you to live. And definitely come out to Self-Reliance Festival, guys. It's going to be a great time. We've got good speakers, but more importantly, if you feel alone, if you feel like the lone wolf prepper right now, that's where you go to meet people who think like you do, who understand the priority of learning new things, building resilience into your life, building skills, and taking responsibility for what happens next. Because it's up to you. It is up to you.
Yeah, take a training class. That's where you meet folks. It could be a weapons training class. It could be a canning class. It could be animal husbandry. It could be a gardening class. You're going to meet people that think the way you do. That's how you find them. Yep. People that are out there doing the things.
Do the things, guys. We'll see you next week.
That's it.
Man, thank you for coming on here with us, dude.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. We'll do this again anytime. Well, we're going to do it tomorrow night again for a little while.
Yeah,
But anytime you guys want to have me back, just let me know.